Hello, I'm Dr. Giles P. Croft, and welcome to another special guest episode of Wellbeing Wednesdays, where today I'm in conversation with Dr. Kevin Tipper about the issue of stress and burnout in general practice. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a former NHS surgeon, now coach and trainer, working with groups and individuals to help them better manage workplace stress and anxiety without the need for prescriptions, therapy, or time-consuming self-care practices. Kevin is a GP partner of 14 years who, after seeing many people failing to reach their full potential following periods of psychological distress, despite medication and traditional therapeutic approaches, now also helps people through coaching in addition to his work in general practice. So we've got a lot in common. And one of those things is the kind of coaching we do. We both work from what you'll hear us call an inside-out perspective, or the three principles. And if that's something that you're new to and this conversation resonates with you, then you can learn more by heading over to my website, gilespcroft.com/perspective, where you'll find a completely free foundations course called A Fresh Perspective on Wellbeing. It's a series of short video lessons that you can work your way through at your own pace and reflect on. Now, talking of reflection, you'll notice that as Kevin and I get into this conversation, there are moments where we both really slow down and sit in silence together for a bit. That's not something that we engineered, and it doesn't mean we'd run out of things to say. It's just that we were both perfectly happy, quietly reflecting on what had just been said. And I'd encourage you to do the same while you watch or listen. We're not going to give you any hints or tips about coping with stress. There are more than enough of those out there, and they're somewhat limited in their utility. But rather, we're pointing to something that's true for us all. Something deeper about our experience and what it means to be human, that just so happens to bring peace of mind, clarity, and a sense of well-being to our clients, clinicians and patients alike. Anyway, enough from me. Relax and enjoy this conversation about stress and burnout in general practice. I hope it helps. So, good morning, Kevin. It's lovely to see you. And we've known each other. This is the first time we've met, isn't it? But we've known each other for we've been in each other's spheres for a while. And I ran a session a while ago, earlier this year, and I invited questions. And you had a question about the relentless nature of general practice. And are you okay if I just read your question out?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you said, I've been around this understanding myself for years. And when we talk about this understanding, we're talking about the inside out understanding, the three principles that both of us talk about and work from. I know that 100% of my experience of life is coming from thought in the moment. Working in relentlessly busy general practice looks like it's causing my stress, but I know that it's my thinking. So how do you navigate a broken system of hugely excessive demand and insufficient resources to safely manage it? And then I asked a follow-up, and I think I asked you, what can you tell me what you mean by navigating a broken system? And you said, well, the volume of calls coming in versus the capacity we have to manage those calls is difficult. They're not balanced. Things can get missed, actions not taken, prescriptions not issued due to the sheer volume of incoming queries. I know that my experience of relentlessness it's a big word, isn't it? Relentlessness is coming from within me, but it doesn't change the fact that the relentlessness is resulting in many medical professionals burning out. I guess you can argue this is a grounding issue. And when we talk about grounding, we're talking about our our understanding of the principles, our understanding of the sort of the human operating system, and what's actually going on. Because it really looks like it's relentless demand causing our experience, but it isn't. It's thought in the moment. Despite knowing this, I can see that it's absolutely true. It still, as yet, isn't making my experience of relentlessness any easier. So that was where, and I'm curious, and that was a few weeks ago, wasn't it? So I'm curious to learn how it looks now. You know, what's it looking like today?
I guess the thing that sparked me sending that question originally was the fact that, one of my patients, who is also a colleague, has been off work for a number of months now with burnout. And when we look at the number of medical professionals who are either burnt out or leaving the profession, it's getting higher and higher and higher. And then, when we get announcements like we had on Sunday,
Yeah.
which is that, our practice, we've been a COVID vaccination centre. So, we've lost, our admin staff, our clinical staff to working in the COVID vaccination centre, which means that, we're a very busy practice, 17,000 patients. And we don't get any replacement staff to help us with the staff that we lose to the vaccination centre. So we've been doing that already over the last 2 or 3 months. And then the announcement on Sunday comes in that basically we need to vaccinate the whole of, the over 18s in the next couple of weeks. And, so the system was already, even before COVID, the system was basically borderline broken. And then COVID comes in, and and it makes it even harder. And then these new requirements come in, which then make it, which basically, send it even more
Over the edge, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where we're at the moment. And personally, myself, I, I'm okay. I don't feel like I'm on the edge. But I can see how, when we work in this way, like I say, even before COVID, it was just relentless demand anyway. So when you're working in that system for, for years and years, and these, I can really see why many people get burnt out, and why they leave the profession. And whilst I know that that my experience of my work is coming from within me, of all the things, that like I say, I feel like I'm deeply grounded in the principles, and I know the answers to my own questions. I know those. I know what the answers are, and I've got a really good, a good idea of what you're going to say to me. It's
Good. I'm
still.
glad someone does. I'm glad someone does. Yeah, go on.
But it still looks like a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? And when you say a thing, what do you mean a thing?
It looks real. It looks to be true that a broken system causes medical professionals to burn out.
Well, I mean, you and I are here. We can only really talk about my experience and your experience. We can't speak for your colleagues. We can see what's going on with your colleagues, because it's the same that's going on with everybody else. And so, hearing what you've just said, then, yeah, it makes absolute total sense to me that there's a whole ton of burnout that those situations. I think anybody in those situations without an understanding of where their experience is coming from, and therefore, I mean, I wrote a little piece about burnout a while ago, and I came up with my my own little definition of it. I can't even remember what it was, but it was something along the lines of it's a natural consequence of ignoring our feelings. It's a natural consequence of ignoring our feelings, and anyone who's not been exposed to the principles, to the inside out understanding, will go, what do you mean? I'm not ignoring my feelings. My feelings are destroying me. But when we see what our feelings are actually telling us, it just, it puts a completely different perspective on it, doesn't it? I mean, you know that. I know that.
I often ask people, do you see any benefit or any positive aspects around the experience that you're having at the moment with stress, anxiety, or depression? And most people would say no. I can't see how it could be helpful in any way. And obviously, that is a doorway to talking around the benefits of all of our feelings, whether they're positive feelings or negative feelings. That our feelings are always helpful.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's always pointing us back to as closest to reality as we can get. Those feelings are always sort of a little tap on the shoulder to say, look, you're not in reality. You're not in the now. You're not in the present moment. Because it's the whole notion of relentlessness is fascinating, isn't it? Because for something to be relentless, it's got to be on a time scale. It's got to be on a concept. Relentlessness is a concept. I looked up, like, the little bit of homework I did. I didn't get to answering this. That's why we're having this conversation, isn't it? Because I didn't get to answer the question when I was supposed to. But I did do a little bit of research for it. So I thought, oh, hang on a minute, let's dig around in the meaning of the word relentless. Let's look at what it actually means. And there's three parts to it. There's which is going back to. There's less at the other end, which means to be divided from or cut apart from. And then there's lentus in the middle, which is Latin and means slow, soft, and supple. So for something to be relentless, you have to be separated from, going back to being slow, soft, and supple. I thought that was fascinating. Because I don't know about you, but my experience of life itself, life as it actually is, which is now, can't be anything else. There's never been a human in the history of humanity who's experienced anything but the present moment. That, to me, don't know about you, feels slow, soft, and supple. No matter what's going on, no matter what the situation, when I'm not invested in my thinking, I'm not being taken away from that. And I come back to it. That's the isn't it? For something to relent, it means to go back to that. So, yeah, I mean, what's the question? Is it how do we help our colleagues to see this? Is that the question? Well, what would help?
Yeah, I think yes. How and this is not. I know that my colleague is getting some support through practitioner health, which and with medication, but it isn't getting him anywhere close to being fit to be back at work, which is where he wants to be. And so we went for I suggested based on knowing that you you offer it, a walk and talk. So we went out for 3 hours and had a really nice walk in the countryside together, and had a really good chat. But he's still really struggling, and I'd really like to be able to. We've not engaged on a personal sort of coaching relationship, which I don't think is something that I'd like to do when he's already having the input from. I think mixing up therapeutic input is probably not not a helpful thing to do, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been having a bit of my own coaching recently, and with one of the first generation principles people, and they said Sid used to say, you're never going to do any harm letting people know how things actually work. So I don't know whether it's gonna.
Quite interesting what he actually said to me when I checked in with him recently was he said, because we had our talk, I've recommended a number of different books that he's read, a few videos as well, and he said, I can really see how this is helpful, but more when you're well, as a protection against it. But when you're actually in the thick of it, it's not seeming to to really help me on a practical level to fight, to sort of get to where I need to be.
I mean, I suppose you've got like a macro and a micro level to this, haven't you? And I mean, what's your experience of when you know that you're all shook up, when you know that you're up in your head about stuff? Does it help for somebody to say, "Oh, Kevin, it's just your thinking, mate"? I mean, does that help you?
Well,
You probably say it to yourself. If you're anything like me, there'll be times when you're saying it to yourself. Oh God, why am I so up in my head about everything? I know what the answer is. I know that this entire experience that I'm having is thought created. So why can't I do anything about it?
Yeah, I mean, when I use the word relentless, I kind of just to put that into context. What I'm actually talking about is at our surgery. The duty doctor is sat in the reception area.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're like in the control room.
Yes.
And I have a screen with a list of patients that I need to phone.
Yes.
We also have on the day advanced nurse practitioners that deal with a lot of the acute, stuff. And I kind of signpost and guide, incoming calls and queries as to who will be the most appropriate person for them to deal with. Sometimes
like triage.
But I have a list of my own patients to call. So I've got a list of patients. I'm sat in a room that's got 8 or 10 receptionists in it. And I need to phone all of these patients. Plus, as soon as I put the phone down, having spoken to a patient, the phone rings.
Yeah, of course.
And it's one of the receptionists who needs some advice. And then I've got 2 people who are standing next to me waiting to speak to me. I've got a district nurse who rings the ex-directory line because there's a palliative patient that needs something sorted out in the community. And, so I've got like 6 things to do, and I haven't documented the consultation that I've just put the phone down from.
Of course.
And I need to document that, and I need to do a prescription or something along those lines. And so the distractions, the interruptions, you can't concentrate on one thing at a time. You're being hit by loads of things from lots of different directions, urgent messages on your screen, the telephone, people standing next to your phones, and all the rest of it. So it's that kind of thing where that's what I mean by relentlessness, and the number of appointments that are available versus the number of people that need appointments. There's a big mismatch there. And so when I get into a bit of a panic situation, because of my sort of grounding, and because I now am so much more tuned into my feelings than I ever have been before, I'm very sensitive to noticing when I start to deviate away from that kind of, when I start to head towards psychological distress. I'm very, very sensitive to it. I pick it up very early, and so I'm able to bring myself back into the moment, into the situation. Maybe I might just get up and go and have 30 seconds, grab a quick drink, just let things settle down a little, and then try and get the focus back and keep going.
Yeah.
So that's how I manage it personally.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that all sounds very, very reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's triage, isn't it? That's why triage was invented. Triage was invented to screen more. Didn't it come out of war? Wasn't it invented first or the Second World War or something? When you've got more patients than you've got resources, that's why you have triage.
Yeah.
You treat the most important first. And I get it. I mean, I've got experience of working in a, not in a pandemic, but in a busy health service. Done on calls where I've not slept for 3 days solid. It's been relentless. So I get it. And it's easy to innocently create a story about what all that means. Nobody likes to see other people suffer. We're all connected. We wouldn't be doing this job if we didn't care deeply about our fellow humans. But doesn't there come a point where the question just boils down to, am I doing my best? I mean, do you feel like you're doing your best in these difficult situations?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no question about
Okay.
that, which is why, in a clinical situation, I never worry about about patients being dissatisfied, because I know 100% that I will always do my best to help whoever's in front of me from as best I can. And I think this will be true for many, many clinicians, though, is that the best that we can is, it just feels like it's nowhere near enough.
I know. Between you and me, it's why I left medicine.
Yeah.
I could see that there was a gold standard of care and we were nowhere near providing it.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to be a part of a system like that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it really looks to me, and it feels that, if you were going to design a system that was designed to be the worst system that you could come up with, but it's kind of like you've got dangerousness and negligence at the bottom, and then the NHS sits just a little bit above that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the most efficient way to run a system where everybody's under pressure and the resources are just not there, and the outcomes are just about okay. And to work within that is inevitably going to have consequences, irrespective of kind of the understanding of knowing where our feelings are coming from.
Well, I think there's an inevitability in terms of outcomes. There's an inevitability in terms of patient outcomes. I think, again, we're back to triage, aren't we? We're like, if you've got 100 patients who are about to die and you've only got the resources to treat 10 of them, then 90 of them are going to die. That's just maths. So to me, there's an inevitability there. But there's not an inevitability about the experience that each and every individual in that system has. That's not inevitable. It looks inevitable. This is part of the problem, isn't it? It looks like that situation, 90 people dying, comes pre-packaged with meaning. That if that happens, that we have to feel a particular way. Now, I don't want that to be misconstrued as me saying, I don't give a shit about the 90 people. Of course I do, but there's an individual experience that we all have there. That's anything but inevitable. We'll have moments where we find it deeply distressing for good reason. But there's just something about knowing where that distress comes from and what that distress is, that at the level of principle, it's a resistance to what is. It can't be anything else. There's no other way to have that experience.
I use a lot the more full stops, less commas, which I really like, which is around that. At the moment, I feel exhausted, I feel burnt out. And the more commas we use after that, and therefore that means I'm broken, comma, it means that I'm never going to recover, comma, it means my career's finished, comma, it means I'm going to lose my house, and all of the stories that we attach to it. Whereas that feels very heavy and almost irreversible. Whereas to say, I feel exhausted, full stop. The end.
Well, I feel exhausted, and it makes sense for me to maybe put my own oxygen mask on first here. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, I was having a conversation with somebody who's working with the 3 principles, working specifically with people on burnout, and they did a study where they looked at all the characteristics of people who experience burnout, and there are some key characteristics that crop up time and time again, and it's the utter selflessness, the believing that nothing that they ever do is good enough in terms of, because they see the 90 people and it's like, well, I absolutely have to get stuck into that over and above, I have to try and wring out the extra resources where there are none out of myself, and they burn out. And doesn't it get to a point where it's like, well, am I more used to the service working within the understandably shitty confines of it, knowing where my experience comes from, knowing I can only do my best, knowing that the 90 patients are going to die. I mean, I don't know why I picked that as a number, but there we go. I should have said 90 patients survive and 10 patients. That's far more realistic, isn't it? But, knowing that people are going to suffer, but understanding my experience of it, knowing when it's time to step back, like you said, knowing when it's time to step away from the phone. I'm going to be literally no use if I'm not at work. There's some all the common sense stuff that about eating, sleeping, resting to the best of your abilities. That all stands. It's not like we're saying, well, either you have an understanding of the principles and you muscle your way through it and nothing ever bothers you ever again, or you get plenty of rest and you sleep. No, it's a big old and, isn't it? It's like all that stuff's going on, and 100% of your experience of it is coming from thought in the moment. That doesn't mean to say that you don't look after your body, because I know when I'm sleep deprived or I'm stupidly hungry, that, I'm not going to be at my best. A lot of the time, I think it's getting caught up in the stories about what should be happening, how things should be, that stops us from actually checking in with ourselves and like, oh no, I'm close to breaking here. I need to stop. I need to stop knowing, like listening to that still, small, quiet voice that says, bloody hell, I'm doing my best here. I'm human. Listening to our feelings.
Part of his frustration is that he knows where he wants to be, and he, despite everything that he's doing, he's exercising, he's using his medication, he's reading, he's looking in various directions, but it isn't translating into a real world actual progression towards being fit to return to work.
Yeah. Well, these things take time, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Things take time.
Yeah. And how much time is it going to take? Who knows? That's just a story that he's put an artificial line and said it has to be by 3 months or 4 months, or well, that's
It's like that sort of age-old question about how to share the understanding with other people, and it's tempting to just say, well, you tell them how it is and then they'll get it. But it's far more being with other people in a particular way. And when it comes to, I've got friends who work in the NHS and who've been off as well, and it's just being with them, helping them to see that this too shall pass, that it's not, there's no experience in the world that's permanent, that there's always hope, that change is on our side. It's got our backs, really. We're always tending to homeostasis. We're always coming back into balance, so that whatever's going on, it's not permanent. And there's always something more to see, whatever we've already seen.
I see it in so many other ways, how this understanding has really helped me,
Yeah.
in my relationship with my wife and my kids, and and my patients.
Mm.
I think it's really true that probably one of the biggest insights that I've had since being around this understanding was, I used to think some patients were, in the business, known as heart sink patients, those difficult people, or, really complicated, or, patients that you see that the name on the list and you think, oh, I'm in for it here, kind of thing. And what I came to see is that 100% of that was coming from me.
Mm.
And when I saw that that was absolutely true, I literally lost all of my heart sink patients in that second.
Brilliant.
And now I've got a completely different relationship with those people. I enjoy those conversations now.
Yeah.
When previously I would have, you know, had a lot of thinking around it.
So just in case anyone is, watching this and is like, what the hell are these two on about? So that could sound like I reframed that. I thought, well, hang on a minute, no, that's just coming from me. So I kind of like reframed that thinking. Is that what you were saying?
I'm not sure it was a reframe. I think it was an insight.
Mm,
I saw that situation completely differently,
mm,
from within me. That came from within me. Um, and so I don't think it wasn't an active process of doing something with my thinking.
mm,
It was just something that I had a realization from within
mm,
that it doesn't work that way. It works differently. And as a
mm,
result of that, I literally lost my
mm,
I lost all my difficult patients.
yeah.
And that was probably, what I don't tend to have these, um, these monster insights where the whole world shakes and
Yeah.
everything looks different.
The
It
clouds
normally,
part and the sun shines
yeah,
through.
normally it's just a kind of, oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
slight realization kind of thing. But
yeah,
of
yeah,
all the insights that I've had,
yeah,
probably two or three,
yeah,
that was probably the one that's had the biggest impact on me.
yeah,
Um, and the other one was around, it's not really relevant to this discussion, but the other
yeah,
one was around creativity.
yeah,
I'd always had this idea that I wasn't very creative. When I was at school, I was always good across the board, languages and literature and science. But I was never, no matter how much time I spent on my artwork, my art homework, I could never ever get more than a C plus.
yeah,
So I just kind of had this story running that I wasn't very creative.
yeah.
And then I heard, on a podcast that somebody else presented that as a problem, and it came back as, oh, so you're just using your creativity to tell yourself that you're not very creative, and that was like, bang. That
Yeah,
really was a monumental insight.
yeah, yeah,
So those two have probably had the biggest sort of working impact on
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Um,
That's beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, I love the creativity when it's because like when you see that like creativity just cannot be stopped. That like every single moment of our lives is a creative process on a like a very very sort of factual basis. It's like, oh right, yeah, oh yeah, that whole being creative, not being creative thing's a load of baloney, isn't it?
Yeah, and just in the same way that wellness and psychological well-being is our default setting. It's our
Yeah, yeah.
it's our starting point, and it's always there. And the only thing that disconnects us from that is believing our thinking to be real.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I remember tweeting something a while ago. I think it was during Mental Health Awareness Week. It was just like a sort of idle question that occurred to me, and it was like, well, if if somebody didn't believe any of their thinking, could mental illness exist? Somebody didn't believe any of their thinking. Could it even exist? I didn't get many answers. Because I'd be interested to find out what people thought of that. I mean, is that nonsense, or does that make sense? If if somebody literally didn't believe any of their thinking, could mental illness exist?
I wonder what Bill Pettit would
Yeah.
think of that.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to know, because obviously some, at general practice level, the kind of, the mental illnesses that we tend to deal with are, anxiety, depression, stress, that kind of thing. We don't really see a lot of the, the very high level, complex mental illness. So I feel a little bit uncomfortable speaking around those kind of areas. That I'm
not asking you professionally.
It does look to me like a significant proportion of mental illness could be eradicated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and surely, okay, this is just, the way I see it, but isn't the more florid stuff, it's still all on the same scale, surely. It's just further along that scale. Exactly the same principles are at play here.
Yeah.
People don't wake up one day having panic attacks before, that kind of like building up gradually. Again, innocently ignoring what our feelings are telling us, innocently misinterpreting what our feelings are telling us, I guess. So it looks like they're telling us about the outside world.
I really like how Bill puts it, when he says it's thoughts with special effects.
Yeah, thoughts with special effects. Yeah.
But as Sid said, if the one thing that we knew was not to be afraid of our experience, that alone would change the world. And that, to me, is just so hopeful.
Yeah.
If people could really see that at a deep level, then if we weren't afraid of burnout, if it was, I feel pretty broken, I feel exhausted, but I'm okay with that, because I know it's temporary. It's the weather, the psychological weather that I'm experiencing at the moment. And just in the same way, we don't go out to try to change the weather outside. We know it will pass. We don't have to do anything.
Yeah. It really is it in a nutshell, isn't it? That quote. I looked up another one too. Let's finish with another Sid quote. The one, life is like any other contact sport. You may encounter hardships of one sort or another. Wise people find happiness not in the absence of such hardships, but they're in their ability to understand them when they occur. And I was a bit shocked when I read that, because when I actually went and looked it up, it's actually different from how I remembered it. I think I'd remembered it as people find happiness not in the absence of such hardships, but in their ability to, I don't know what I thought it said, like their ability to cope with them when they occur, or their ability to their ability to deal with them when they occur, or not be bothered by them when they occur. But it's not. No, it's their ability to understand them when they occur. And I think that's the big thing, isn't it? And that links in perfectly with that other quote. If people could learn not to be afraid of their experience, well, that's understanding, isn't it? That's understanding what's going on. Oh yeah, like you say, it's weather. It's weather. It's not personal. It's gonna pass. Sun's always there. Yeah. Well, this has been a lovely conversation.
Yeah, it's been great to connect. I've enjoyed meeting you.
Yeah. And you've joined the Wellbeing Wednesdays crew, haven't you?
I have, yes. I
Yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of the times with being on, I do a lot of on calls on Wednesday, so I probably won't be able to make a lot of them, real time.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
chuck your answers in when I think next, I think January's in a true January fashion is going to be about goals. So I'm going to be putting a shout out for questions about goals, and we'll have a look at those from a 3 principles perspective.
I'll follow you on Twitter as well to make sure you get some response to you.
to my bizarre questions, yeah. To my offensive questions. Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that. Well, lovely chatting. I'll see you later.
Yeah, take care. All the best. Bye bye now.
Hi, it's Giles again. I hope you found that helpful. And a reminder that if you'd like to learn more about this transformative way of working with clients, then head over to my website at gilespcroft.com/perspective and get started on the free Fresh Perspective on Wellbeing Foundations course. You'll have heard us mention Wellbeing Wednesdays at the end there as well. This is a monthly online community meeting that I run where we take this understanding of how our minds work and apply it to a different real life topic each month. They're lovely, relaxed affairs that are broadcast from my wife's wool shop here in Abergavenny. You can find out more about those, browse previous episodes, which you can get hold of individually, or like Kevin, become a subscriber. Come along to live events, get your own questions answered, and obtain access to the entire back catalogue of episodes. You can do all of this, as well as watching a clip from Wellbeing Wednesdays, over on my website at gilespcroft.com/wellbeing. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I know there are lots of things vying for both, and I hope to connect with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.